whether they're a child or whether they're an adult. And I think that that's got to be part of the model moving forward. And that has bipartisan support in Congress. It's got bipartisan support here in the state of New Hampshire. And wherever you go in the region of our district, people
then why
view that.
did you vote to eliminate the law that's going to double community health center support from the federal government?
Because again,
why did you do it? You don't make any sense to me, Mr. Kennedy. You make no sense. I'm not here to... I'm a little involved in this. So I just think it would be helpful if you talked about federal policy, because you are our representative to the federal government, not the mayor of Manchester.
Well, I'm using the experience that I've had as running the state's largest city and trying to implement and utilize what we learned from that.
It's financed with federal money from the Medicaid reimbursement. So you're just totally obfuscating the whole thing, in my opinion.
Okay, well,
but I appreciate your willingness to engage.
I respect your opinion. I think that I don't believe that this bill is the best manner in which we can reduce costs nationwide. We have a disagreement. I respect the fact that you have a different approach. That's what makes, I think, our state and our nation great. We get to have this conversation in a respectful, responsible way. But the one thing that I'm not going to do, because I don't believe it, is support this piece of legislation. I do think we've got better alternatives. Yes, sir.
The city has good decisions. I have a question. I'm on Medicare. I received this thing in the mail a week or so ago from a group called the American Action Network, whoever they are, saying that you support seniors for Medicare, and you want to take care of protecting Medicare Part D. My question is, and this is very misleading information. I don't know if you're supported or not, but it's very misleading.
Actually, I
well, it's something that I question the validity of and the veracity of it. But it says that you're trying to protect Medicare Part D, and what this basically is implying and is saying that you're supporting the fact that you don't want the federal government to be able to negotiate prices for drugs for dual eligible Medicaid, Medicare recipients. Like CDC negotiates prices, the military negotiates prices, the VA negotiates prices, every insurance company negotiates prices with drug companies and hospitals, etc. But the Republicans will not allow us to allow them the federal government to negotiate prices for drugs that would save, according to the CBO, just for Medicare, Medicaid dual eligibles. If that were to pass, it would save $112 billion over 10 years to allow the federal government to negotiate prices for drugs. It doesn't diminish the service to Medicare people. It's not saving Medicare Part D, it's saving the drug companies. I would like to know why you would not support allowing the federal government to negotiate prices and save the taxpayers $112 billion over 10 years.
May I see the
yes, you can see analysis of this proposal that I have. I really a specific answer. Why don't you support the government allowing them to negotiate prices to save $112 billion over 10 years for Medicare, Medicaid dual eligible? Very simple question. I'd like a specific answer.
Well, I don't know. This is the first time I've seen this mail. I don't know who sent it. I'm not familiar with this group.
They're saying you support that proposal, and I'd like to know what's going on here.
I don't think that's what it's not how I read this.
That's what it means. I looked it up online and did the research on it, and it's talking about the Waxman-Rockefeller bill that would require the federal government to negotiate prices for Medicare, Medicaid dual eligibles.
Well, I'll just read one sentence. It says that I've joined a bipartisan effort to block President Obama from balancing the budget on the backs of seniors.
That's not what that does.
I'm just telling you what
this says. That's not what that is.
Answer his question.
Answer my question. Why don't you support the government negotiating prices for drugs that would save $112 billion over 10 years?
I support anything that we can do to save $112 billion or $112 trillion. I'm not, I don't, I've never seen that until now. It's not, let me finish. I'm not sure that that's exactly what that says. What it says is there's a bipartisan group that opposes a piece of legislation that changes the cost for Medicare.
Well, I can read you exactly what the analysis is, if you
Well,
like.
I'd be happy to take a look at it when we're done, and I can sit down with you personally. Again, I didn't send that to you. I don't know what group sent it to you.
Representative, it's got your face on it.
I understand it's got my face, but I didn't send it to you, and I don't know what that
Who
group
is the American?
I have no idea.
You don't know.
I don't know. So I'd be happy to take a look at it after with you and research it for you. And
I hope you do, because you should, and then if you don't agree with this, or if you don't know what it is, you should send out something refuting it.
Well, this was the first notification I had that something was sent, so I appreciate you bringing it to my attention.
You can have
Yes,
this,
sir.
and you can research it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to introduce a few things that I think are important for this discussion overall, because I think some of the premises of the discussion are false. First of all, there isn't necessarily a debt issue per se, because you have a financial system that is crashing, and you have people that run this financial system that are like vampires out to suck the blood of the population. And we've seen this in Europe. We've seen this in Europe, whether you're talking about Greece, Ireland. Now this debt deal, I think it should be clear, anyone that voted for this debt deal voted for treason. It creates a mechanism where it's an attack on our Constitution. We don't have representative government. When you have a supra-congressional institution where it's the president and some committee that's going to determine our fiscal policy, and our representative government can't make any amendments to the recommendations. And the whole line was that S&P is going to downgrade us. S&P gave Enron a AAA rating at the time that they were going bankrupt. Who cares what these rating agencies say? We need to defend our nation against these financial institutions, and anyone that voted for that should be removed from office, including our president. Thank you.
Boo.
Yes.
Boo. Boo.
I'm just curious, when we discuss this budget deficit, when more than 50%, by a high number, more than 50% of our budget is spent on military, why are we ever taking anything away from the people, like Pell Grants you voted against? I mean, I know they successfully stayed in, but you voted against them. Why is it even a question where we should cut money from? Clearly only one place, and that's the largest piece.
Well, the largest piece of our budget is actually not defense. The largest piece is we have sort of two components of the budget. We've got the discretionary side, which is what I refer to as our operating budget. Anything that is agency related. And then the other side, and that is annually has to be budgeted, adopted, voted on. And, there's basically three different things: an omnibus, an actual budget vote, or a continuing resolution. The other side is what Washington refers to as mandatory, which is anything that is codified in law. So that is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and unemployment benefits. That's about 50 to 51% of our budget. In order to have a reduction in our long-term debt, which is $14.3 trillion, and our deficit, annual deficit, which is about $1.5 trillion, we've got to get a handle on all sides of government. There has to be a responsible way to reduce waste, fraud, abuse in every area of the federal government.
Is Pell Grants waste?
No, we actually restored it at $5,500 per individual.
You personally voted to get rid of it.
No, I didn't. Actually, we didn't vote to eliminate Pell Grants. What we have been trying to do in this budget is bring, in the budget process through the budget committee, bring the spending levels back down to 2008 levels. And the reason for that is since that period, discretionary spending has been increased by 28%, and overall spending has been increased by 84%. I personally believe that that is not sustainable in the long term. And both the CBO, which is the Congressional Budget Office, and the President's Budget Office agree with that sentiment, that we've got to get the spending component under control, that we've got to change the trajectory. With the Pell Grants, what we did do is make sure that it was restored at the $5,500 level. But this is going to be a long process. I mean, we cannot afford to continue to borrow the money at the rate that we are and use roughly 42 cents of every dollar that we spend on borrowed dollars. I personally don't believe that's good public policy. And I don't think that most Americans think that's good public policy. Now, we may have differences of opinion on how to achieve a balanced budget, but I think that that's a good discussion for us to have, not just here in New Hampshire, but in the country.
I think that you're cutting education and you're cutting where we actually need money. I think
Well, we
we
actually reduced so far in our appropriations bills that we have passed in the House, which I believe are at 7 of the 12. We're reducing spending in each of them on an average of 11%. And that's roughly getting them back to the 2008 levels. Maybe there are some things that, you don't agree with or others don't agree with, but I think we can all agree on the fact that we've got to do something to get our spending levels under control. So this is the approach that I'm taking. I think it makes the most sense. But I'm certainly, willing to continue to listen to what people would like me to do. I continue to hear from New Hampshire on the tax side that people want me to close loopholes, that they want the code to be fairer, and they want to have an infusion of dollars that are sitting on the sidelines and overseas so we can start to generate jobs and a stronger economy in this country. And that, I tend to hear that from both sides of the aisle. I think that's an opportunity for us to work in a bipartisan way in Washington to get something like that accomplished. Yes.
I want to thank you for the efforts you've been making with the EPA to reduce the impact of communities regarding copper limits and treatment plants. Right now, as Greenland, to try to change the topic completely back to our little town, we have been in compliance with the 2003 MS4 permit. We are the smallest MS4 community in the country. So, our 1,700 residents, our 1,700 properties have these enormous wastewater, not wastewater, but stormwater controls that we have to follow. The same as Portsmouth, whereas Manchester is exempt, Nashua is exempt, Keene is exempt. We're currently waiting for the release of the 2008 permit, which is due to be released this fall. When that's released, I know the financial impact to Greenland is going to be substantial. Some of the requirements are going to be walking both sides of every stream mile by foot twice per year. For a town like Greenland, that's additional staff.
Who would have to do that this summer?
We would probably have to hire a contractor. I don't have a public works department. We hire out our snow plowing. And we have a transfer station that people bring their own trash to. One of the requirements was to label every catch basin that don't pour anything down. Education is wonderful. We can tell our residents that in a small community. But one of the selectmen and I went to catch basin, and we glued down a little sticker to tell people not to pour something down the drain. The new requirements are difficult. So we're hoping that you can take a look and try and intercede somehow to soften the financial impact. These education requirements that I will have to educate every business in town twice a year on use less salt, but I have no authority to tell them ask them how much salt did you use. I can just preach. So as a small town,
It's a challenge.
it's a huge challenge. The taxes will go up and residents will be unhappy. But we're already environmentally conscious.
One of the things that, as I spend time over in the Seacoast area, a lot of environmental issues have been brought to my attention. And the role that I'm trying to play with communities and the EPA is, I've met with the EPA on this and other issues. I've met with the communities, and I've tried to meet with other groups other than community representatives to try to get perspective on different environmental issues. And what I've learned from the communities out in the Seacoast is that this is a region that is environmentally conscious, wants to preserve Great Bay and other